Hello, hello. It is a rainy and gloomy morning here in Texas. For Rasmus, it's afternoon. I would love for you to introduce yourself on the 99 Dev Problem Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name is Rasmus. I'm based in Copenhagen in Europe. So as you said, it's late afternoon here right now. Also rainy. I'm the founder of a company called Bucket. Prior to Bucket, I co-founded another company in the APM space that got acquired by Elastic. Yeah, I'll keep it short.
Very cool. That is short. Well, we have like a couple stories to dig into there then. I was able to see Bucket's website the other day and I love it. If you are a developer and you're listening to this, go over to bucket.co. They have a very different design than I've seen in the past. And I, as a developer, think it is amazing because it's left side nav and everything you need is right there. So definitely go check it out. All right, well, let's dive into it. Rasmus, I would love to hear one of the first things I want to ask about is education. It's really great to share with those that are listening how you got here, right? So, what is your education, if any, that has played into where you got to today?
Right. Yeah. I'm not an engineer by training. I got into tech through UX. So in the university, I started, basic UX, but this is way back before the industry is or was as established as it is today. So it's very early days. You're reading books like human computer interaction and doing stuff like that in those courses from the university. But it was my way in. Like I was really, I was really blown away by very technical products that solve big problems in a very, very elegant and easy to use
Mm.
way. Right, like that's really how I got into tech. Like I just love stuff that is very deep from a technical point of view, but so easy to use.
Mm, I love that. You know, you say that you're like not a developer, but at the end of the day, that totally explains a developer, right? That's exactly what they want. They want products that are going to solve big pain points, but are easy to use, straightforward, have all the things that they need, but not more things than they need, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, 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 totally. And as a front end hacker, I could sort of mock up these tools, right? So I was building out,
Yep.
jQuery front end applications,
Mm.
trying to mimic what I wanted to achieve, but I couldn't implement it end to end. So luckily, I hooked up with my co-founder Ron, who was also my co-founder in my past company. So we've been sort of teaming up for 15 years or so now.
That is super cool. Okay, let's dive into that a little bit. So you two built something already. Do you want to like sort of dive into a little bit of what you did? It's really cool that the two of you have been working together on two different companies because sometimes that's hard, right? You must have like great chemistry there to be able to keep doing and possibly found your groove.
Oh yeah, I think I'm very lucky. I think it's very hard to find good co-founders. Like I've met a lot of would-be founders or single founders that are looking for that other person to do the to get on the journey with, and it's just so hard. Like there's like
Hmm.
they come you have to complement each other in terms of skills, but also just trust each other, be friends essentially, right? But also business partners, which is just so hard to find that one person. So yeah, I'm very lucky. It was so random. I was building this website back in I was in university. It's a long time ago. It's before Twitter, and I was I was getting really bummed out of thinking about all this cool stuff that was on the internet that I didn't know of because there were no
Yep.
link aggregators before Twitter or Facebook, right? So
Hmm.
I heard about cool stuff very late sometimes, and I was like, man, why didn't I know about this earlier? You could go to forums and stuff like that, but you had to know all of them because again, no
Hmm.
aggregation was really happening. So I built this thing in on like a PHP backend open source thing that I hacked together with a front end that could enable some Scandinavian people to share links when they saw something cool. Anyway, I
Ooh.
was I was I was getting to sort of um, I was sort of maxing out my hacking skills on that site. So I was asking people on the site, the community, if they knew anyone who could potentially help me out as an engineer. One guy called Oscar said, "Yeah, you should talk to Ron." And then it got on a Skype, which was the thing back then, and that's it. Like he ended up coding the second version of that site, and then we of course met up in real life, and then now, 15 years later, we founded two companies together.
Oh my gosh, that is such a fun story. Okay, so I have to ask, which open source PHP tool was it? Was it like Joomla, Mambo?
Right, we definitely tried those. I can't remember which one we ended up picking.
Okay.
It might have been Joomla. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's so funny
Yeah.
because you're saying like all the same tools. That's exactly when I got into becoming a developer as well. And so my like nerd moment was that I wanted to play Guitar Hero with other people who were like me. I got really good at it, and I was like, okay, the only way for me to get better is for people to push me to compete. And so I did the same thing. I had sort of front end skills and like pulled together a Joomla site, and then ended up finding a PHP dev, and so he helped me make it better. But that's so cool that y'all are like still connected and have now built two companies, right?
Right. Yeah. 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 It's crazy. But
Mm.
to your point earlier, like when you found something that works, then yeah, stick with it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so great. Plus, I mean, it's nice too because you start to build that relationship of like you kind of get to know each other. You get to know each other personally, like things that you personally care about, your values, your mission, which I think is really super important. Like you were saying, trying to find that co founder isn't easy because it's hard to align on all the things, right? What is your goal of why you're
Mm.
building this? What do you want out of life, right? What's that type of culture that you're building inside of that company? And you really have to resonate with each other to build something that at least is very cohesive and working well for everyone involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Any tips or tricks in how you have operated, I guess, over the years?
Um, I think honesty and transparency, which
Mm,
is of course natural from that, is just so key. Like you just have to be extremely honest because you're jumping into fire, and you
yeah.
just need to know whenever one is feeling down or feeling demotivated or extra motivated or extra pumped, like uh, and why that is, right? So you can build trust, and I think without trust it gets very hard. Also, in
Hmm.
this post-COVID working climate where you're often working remotely and not in the same office, which is also the case for Bucket, by the way. So we just have to
Yeah.
trust each other that we show up and that
Yeah.
we do the things that we say we will do. And yeah, yeah. So just being very honest and
Sounds
don't
like
don't try to
marriage.
sugarcoat it. Yeah, it's the same. It is the same.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, so do you okay, we can go two different directions. Do you want to talk about the first thing you built and then dive into Bucket, or should we just dive into Bucket and talk about, how you've built that and some of the challenges that you have solved with Bucket? I'll leave it up to
Up
you.
to you. Up to you. I'll let you decide.
Ooh, this is so hard. Okay, we still have like a good solid 20 minutes, if we even stick to the half an hour. So let's talk about the first one. How did the
Yep.
first one sort of originate, and kind of tell us the story there? I'd love to hear about it. What y'all built.
Yeah. Okay. So I was working in a fairly large organization, about 1,000 people or so, and I was in the it was a media company actually, and I was in the engineering department, of course, and we were building out these different apps, and we were building out tons of different projects, and oftentimes they would break down, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody would know. Like users would probably most often call customer support or email customer support, and customer support would go like, "Oh, that's odd. I didn't know that anything changed." And then they would go to engineering, some engineering manager, and they would go like, "Wait, I wasn't aware of this." And then they would sort of shout into the room, "Did anyone change anything related to that thing over here? Because this user is saying it's broken." And this was back
Yep.
in 2008 or something like that, where a little bit later, but it was like a few years after GitHub came around. I think 2008 was when GitHub
Mm-hmm.
launched, and this was probably 2010. Anyway, we were using lightweight observability tools back then, and we were using GitHub,
Mm.
but we weren't connecting the things at all. So an engineer, we were getting into DevOps back then, right? So we were trying to
Yep.
ship many times a day, and developers could just ship whenever they were ready. And what we did with Upbeat, which was the name of the company, was trying to tie the Git blame essentially to the alert or the to the error in production. And this
Mm.
wasn't in any way to sort of, you know, make a scoreboard of who should get fired next. It wasn't like that at all. It was simply to not waste time on trying to triangulate, did anything change, who changed it, who knows anything about it, in a big company where it was such a pain because someone was on vacation or someone was in a meeting, or like, it was really, really a big pain. In a small company it's
Yeah.
easy, you're just 10 people or something, but when you're 1,000 it's very different. So
Hmm.
that's what we were trying, and that meant that whenever something broke in production, in true DevOps fashion, we could assign that error to the person who shipped the code and sort of
Hmm.
hopefully, fix it fast so the users won't complain and won't be annoyed. So yeah, that's it. We did okay. We were at about, I don't know, I can't remember, like a few hundred customers or something like that, but it was mostly SMBs. We didn't really
Mm-hmm.
break through into the enterprise, where you have to go eventually if you're VC backed company, which we were, right? So we ended up getting acquired by Elastic. Upbeat became Elastic APM, Application
Mm-hmm.
Performance Monitoring, which then
Yep.
became Elastic Observability, which is now a very big team at Elastic. So Ron and I and the team from Upbeat led that team, the Elastic Observability. So I was the product owner, and Ron was the technical lead, and we had a team lead as well, for Elastic Observability. Um, yeah, I was
That's
there for a few
amazing.
years, and then got back into startup life.
Do you feel like that's I mean, obviously, like, life ebb and flows, right, as we create different things and calls us to different directions, but do you feel like starting and building things is like more of your passion versus, seeing them sort of expand and scale, or do you enjoy both?
Oh no, it's definitely the former. It's not so much building out. It's not necessarily building out the product. It's really figuring out where there is a hole in the market. Like, it's a funny
Mm.
thing, but I can't stop thinking about that. Whenever I'm introduced to whatever product category, it could be anything, also non-technical thing, right? I always think of a way to make a product that is better in that category, and what all the obstacles are, and what all the blah blah, blah. I
Mm.
can't. It's just how I'm wired, I guess. So if I encounter a problem, eh, I'll just keep thinking about how I can introduce a product into that
You want
space.
solutions.
Now, if I'm
Yeah.
then passionate about the space as well, then it's a great idea for a startup. I don't believe you should make a startup just because you've seen a hole in the market if you're not passionate about the market, because you
Ooh.
will run out of you will run out of gas at some point. Like, you have to have some passion, otherwise it's going to be very tough. I think.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point too. I'm going to add a little disclaimer in that the weather is really crazy outside my window. So if I lose internet, it will be unfortunate. I will try to come back in every capacity, but hopefully we're good here. I love that. So I think what's really interesting about that, right, is that a lot of folks have tons of ideas, right? There's constant, like, many developers are nowhere like, oh, I see this pain point. There's a hole in the market. There's something that we need. And they want to chase after solving it because it's human nature as someone who builds stuff. They want to solve it. And I think what really ends up being quite difficult that I've seen a lot is developers or technical people wanting to build something and then realize that their target audience of that thing is maybe not the type of people that they enjoy spending time with. And I'm not saying that, they don't enjoy them, but it's like maybe it's not fellow developers. They solve a problem and then they realize that they're actually targeting, moms or, enterprise companies or just something else, right, that doesn't have that interest. And so I think it's really interesting that you see it from a different lens, right? You see that market, you see that
Hmm.
gap, and like that's what you chase after, instead of necessarily chasing after sort of just building a solution, which is incredible
Hmm.
because oftentimes I feel like that's early stage problems, right? You build something and you're like, okay, now I need to take a step back. How do I position this? Who is this? Who is actually going to use this type of a tool? And I know we chatted a little bit
Hmm.
about that on pre-show, but yeah, I think that's really great. So then how that as that leads into how did Bucket come along? Like where did that sort of come into play? Obviously the two of you left Elastic, or how did that all originate?
Yeah, yeah. No, we did leave Elastic to take a bit of a breather, really.
Mm,
I became a
smart.
dad, and I thought, okay, maybe I should just
Oh,
not do startup while
yay.
I'm, yeah, becoming a parent for the first time. Which in
Yeah.
hindsight was a great idea because, you know,
Yep. I have 4 kids. I
yeah.
get it.
Oh, you get it. Okay, you get it for sure. Yeah, I'm
Yep.
only at two, so good job.
Oh.
But but no, very passionate about the space that Bucket is in because it's about uh, essentially shipping better products, right? But
Mhm.
throughout my entire career, I've seen analytics companies or many different types of products claiming that they can help you build better products. It's
Mhm.
like a very common H1 on
I
different
agree.
websites, typically in
Mhm.
the analytics space, right? It's not untrue. Like if you go to Amplitude or something like that, you can probably use all of their dashboards to build better products if you're quite data driven. The problem
Yeah.
though is it's very hard to get it to be used consistently at scale as your engineering org and product org grows.
Yep.
Or it just it's used very slowly so that you catch customer annoyance or outright issues quite late, or things that just are subpar or not what the customers really were expecting. You might
Yep.
know eventually through sales calls and all the way down to engineering, but sometimes it's very slow, that feedback loop, and it could be much faster. And really in tech R&D and iteration velocity is just so key, right? So shortening that feedback loop
Mhm.
is very important. And it's not just about
Fully agree.
metrics, it's also about the qualitative feedback, because sometimes the metrics you have to go beyond to understand exactly why people aren't retained on these new product updates that you've shipped, right? So you have to ask them why. But
Yep.
in order to know who to ask, you have to have some metrics to show who actually tried it and left, right? So you have to combine all that
Chicken
stuff.
and egg.
Exactly, yeah. And now you're now you're in two different tools: a survey tool, a qualitative tool, qualitative feedback, and you're in a product analytics tool. Anyway, it can be done, and some organizations are very good at it. We just found that most are not good
Mhm.
at it and could be better. And the ROI of doing it better is huge, because tech companies in the early days spend
Mhm.
like 50% of their budget on R&D, right? So there's like huge upside, but it's
Yep.
just overlooked somehow. So we got into Bucket to solve this problem, to do feature level analytics, which is quite far from where we are today. So I'll bring it home in a second, but that's the origin
I
story of
can't wait.
of Bucket. And we were very sort of, what do engineering teams need to build better features? They need short feedback loop, they need qualitative feedback from their customers, and they need some adoption metrics that aren't on the product monthly active user level, because you can't
Mhm.
influence that as a product team. As a product team, you're
Yep.
just building this corner over here. You're not building the whole product, right? Like changing pricing or
Exactly.
GTM messaging could change retention, but you can't with your little feature here. You can just make sure that that feature is very good, right? Like that's what you can do. And if everybody
Yep.
does that well, then the retention metrics will show, but it's a lagging indicator. We wanted to give teams
Yep.
like a leading indicator, like you just shipped something an hour ago.
Mm.
What do people think of it, right? Um,
Ooh, yep.
and feature level metrics is typically just like you do some event instrumentation and you send it off to a dashboard that you then have to create and have to go check back on and then combine it with the qualitative. Anyway, we wanted to do feature analytics done right and turnkey. And that's where we started out. Where we are today is in feature management, and that's an interesting combination.
Mhm.
Like we do feature management, which is essentially feature flagging, uh, purpose built for SaaS businesses. And in SaaS, you have all the things that I just said before. Like you have R&D teams that are very beefy. You're spending 50% of your money on R&D. You have to innovate constantly, otherwise you're gonna get beaten by somebody else who does better than you, right? So
Yeah.
that iteration velocity is so important, and being close to your customers. And at the same time, we have this rise of product engineering, or at least engineering taking more ownership and being more customer centric. So what we were
Mhm.
thinking was, okay, we have this feedback, and we have this these adoption metrics at the feature level. When do you need
Yep.
those? Well, you need them when you roll out a feature gradually to, for instance, a beta
Mm,
segment.
yep.
Like, for instance, 20 customers you're rolling out a feature to get their
Yeah.
feedback, right? So you roll it out to the beta segment on Bucket, and then you trigger the adoption metrics and qualitative feedback, and you make that very, very
Mm,
easy. You have like a single key to do all of it, as opposed to going to many different systems. It's just right there in one tab.
love
And in
that.
the SDK, the way that you flag a feature and the way that you get feedback and track adoption metrics on the feature is the same. It's the same thing.
Ooh.
So it's like you don't need three different SDKs and three different keys. It's like all the same thing. And the more integrated we build this, the more likely it is that engineers get exposed to customer feedback faster and can
Mm,
iterate based off of it. Because
right.
I'll pause in a second, but just to
No,
round that
this is
off,
good.
we know. Okay, cool. We know that engineers really love feedback. They don't want to necessarily go build dashboards all the time, but they actually
Hmm.
always get super motivated. At least the ones we talk to, when feedback flows into Slack somehow, or a PM,
Yep.
or someone from customer success or support gives them a piece of feedback. That stuff they love. It's not that they don't want to
Yes.
talk to customers. They don't want to be on hour-long customer calls all the time, but they actually want feedback. They also want to
Yep.
know that what they do is actually solving a problem, that there's purpose to whatever
Hmm.
they're doing every day, right? Like, go um, to weekend with a sense of success. Like, you've built something. There was a few things that you tweaked, but now everybody is loving it, right? That feels good.
Yes.
And it's good for the business too, of course. So we're trying to combine feature management for SaaS
Hmm.
with the adoption and feedback from end users, so that you can roll out these features, get the feedback while in beta, and then confidently roll out to everyone once you've addressed the concerns. Um,
That's
yeah, let me
incredible.
pause there. Mhm.
Yeah, that I love that. So I have been in a DevRel role for probably the last 10 years ish. And so obviously, as you know, like that's more about going out, being with those users, bringing that feedback back and really advocating internally for the company. I can't even tell you how many times I've built from scratch feedback programs that do somewhat of what you're saying, but it's very manual, right? So reaching out to those beta devs, creating that beta program, nurturing that, getting the analytics from all different places, bringing that together, and then going and actually talking to the product and engineering team and saying, hey, here's what we're hearing. Here's the voice of the developer. Here's what they need. Here's the pains and gains of the customers, because you're absolutely right, they love to hear about it. They don't want to sit on support calls. No, they want to keep writing code, they want to keep building cool stuff, but they want to know, like you said, that they're significantly solving those pains and giving the customers the gains that they need. That is so cool.
Mhm.
So anyone who is doing DevRel, definitely check out Bucket. I haven't used it yet, but now I'm super excited to go actually use it and see if there's a use case with any of my clients I can bring it into.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so powerful.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
awesome. Like, we try to combine, we try to be frictionless and customer centric. Like, that's how we look at the product.
Ooh,
Yeah, yeah. Um, so we're built for SaaS, and we are doing things that SaaS companies need, which is, like, for instance, a company overview page where you can see exactly what features does this company actually have access to, as opposed to
mm,
focusing on anonymous end users, which you see in other feature management tools that are more focused on e-commerce and A/B experimentation, which is totally cool. It's just not very
sure.
applicable in SaaS.
Yeah.
Like, there, you need something else. So we're basically applying whatever is in feature management today, but through a SaaS lens. And then also a bunch
Yeah.
of cool things, like we have AI that cleans up your flags when you're done with them, and all these things.
Ooh. Okay. What are the other all these
Oh,
things?
okay.
Are there other cool
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah.
that?
You get a toolbar so you can test features internally very easily. We have type safety, so you don't
Ooh.
have keys in your code base that aren't actually matching whatever's in production, right? In the feature management tool.
Mm,
Um,
that's powerful.
yeah, whole bunch of cool things.
I love that. I think what's really great about products like that too is that some of those things and those kind of safety guards that you have, right, enable junior developers or sort of those earlier stage developers to come in and like feel empowered to like sort of break stuff, make mistakes, and that's okay, right? Because there's sort of these safety guards. Because I think often when we look at sort of those earlier stage developers, they do come in with a bit of caution, but they have a different like lens. I just love working with new or sort of junior developers in that way because they look at things differently, and so they can come in and provide so much value. But there's also that trade-off of maybe they don't necessarily know all the best practices, or they don't know exactly how you're shipping software in your company. And so it sounds like Bucket can be a really good sort of partner with that type of a ecosystem as well, to really enable them to find success,
Yeah, and that
in a better
no,
way.
I totally agree. That's why I love this product category. Like feature management enables you to securely ship stuff and be able to turn it off really quickly if it breaks stuff, right? In general, like which is
Right.
great for juniors. Like you can ship something, but there's an escape hatch, right? You can toggle them back off in a second, and then everything is back to normal. So that's like one thing that gives confidence to engineers when using feature management. But I think the other thing that we're adding is you also get the customer feedback. So not only did you ship something that didn't break the system, but are customers annoyed or happy with your feature? That is so often an unknown, because the typical sort of ownership ends at the time when you've shipped the feature, right? On linear, for instance, when a project is done, you mark it as done when you deploy it, right? But then what happens after? If customers don't like it or are super confused about it, I think that project should be open just a little while longer while you get that feedback and just check if everything is okay, and then you can. Oh, now I lost you, Tessa.
All right, we're going to try this again. Hopefully, it just adds to the end of the beginning section. Lost power, but we are back. We were talking about junior devs and how great Bucket is, just all around generally for junior devs and non-junior devs, right? To be able to have those kind of safeguards and be able to play within that feature space and be able to turn those off. Um, yeah, I'm trying to sort of pivot there. Did you have anything that you wanted to add? Otherwise, we can kind of expand from there.
I think just the final thing I was talking about when you drop was just the confidence that it also gives engineers to hear from customers, right? Because you ship
Mm,
something, and not only did it not break anything, so you don't have to toggle it back off, but also you got some validation from customers that they like your work, and I think that builds confidence and builds trust with the rest of the team. And it can be quite hard to get that today in some organizations, because you can't
yeah.
really track down what customers are thinking about your work, which is kind of that's the strange thing with this industry, right? Is that you don't see your customers. Like you're not like in a clothing store and you can see people coming in looking at the clothes and go like, nah, I don't like this, right? And then they go out. That's feedback, but we don't
Yep.
get that. So whatever you can give to make engineers feel, more confident that what they're doing is actually good, and when it's not, then they learn from their mistakes and they hear from customers and they can iterate.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting too because it's actually such a painful process. So like let's say an engineering team like wants to go and reach out to customers, right? They have to reach out to someone who knows the customers, get a customer list, pull a data report, right? Whatever that situation might be, try to pinpoint exactly what customers are using that feature, which honestly without Bucket and with my thinking in the past, like it's really difficult to do unless they've already provided feedback, or it's really crystal clear like you said in some of the analytics. But even then you're still trying to connect analytics to who's that actual customer and who can we pinpoint. Then you have to reach out, try to schedule a call, try to actually have that conversation. It's quite painful for developers or technology teams to actually go out and do that. And so you're making that a lot easier for them to just say, hey, I need those insights, I want to understand what the customer thinks, and to get that actually delivered to them right then and there.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also about tool ownership. I think like the tools
Hmm.
that we talked about before, they're typically owned in other functions, like typically
Sure.
in the product
Yeah.
organization. And I've been in a product organization, and you're insanely busy
Hmm.
in most product organizations, and PMs are doing a lot of different work. Like they're just crazy busy. So sometimes giving very granular, low level feedback on a new feature release is just not a priority, right?
Yep.
But really, the sum of all these parts is really the product. So it matters. Like it matters.
Yeah.
Quality just matters, and you can see all the tools that I have in my dock here on my Mac, like they won because of quality. Like linear is there Slack is there, right? And like they had their HipChat was there before, Jira
Oh,
was
hip
there.
chat.
Like, yeah, I know, and it was pretty good. But then um, someone just cared a little bit more about the details, and they won over the market, right? So I guess I'm really a big believer in setting the bar really high and just pursuing quality. And sometimes that is as low level as getting told that your export CSV feature is generating random names for the CSV files, and it's annoying because they should be dated or something. It's just small stuff like that. But if you know, and I mean, if an engineer knows about this pain from a customer, they will fix it, and they love
Yes.
fixing it. But sometimes they just don't know, and they hear about it, but maybe it's been 4 months or something like that, right? And I think that stuff matters. So when a feature is in beta, in feature management, it's still owned by engineering,
Mm-hmm.
and also from a sort of company wide perspective, it's not GA yet, so it's not gone
Right.
to market. It hasn't. So that's why it makes sense for us to have this stuff in bucket. I think, even though we are an engineering tool, right? Like, but in beta we can sort of we can talk to the customers, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I wish Bucket was around when I was like actually in my developer days because this is the stuff I care about too. And this is why Built for Devs is the business that it is, right? It is about getting those insights from the developers, very raw and candid on their feedback. But this is just a beautiful process where it doesn't have to bring in sort of that the invasiveness of full on interviews or surveys or having to have those conversations, right? It's like it's right there in that feature and just really empowers them to be able to make those decisions. It's funny. So I was just doing a product walkthrough with a client not that long ago, and they had Google authentication, right? Great. We all want really easy authentication. But in the authentication, it was actually giving permissions to everything, like their entire Google account, edit their contact information, personal information, all of that. And so every developer that did the walkthrough was like, no way, no way am I going to give you access to that, right? And it's such a small thing when you're building either early or you're building a new feature that you just don't necessarily think about all of those little tiny moments that do trigger. And so when we're talking about engineers as users, they're even pickier, right? Every little decision matters. How are you doing this? What is the security behind it? What is the permissions? No, I'm not going to use that tool. I'm not installing something. Just all these different sort of preferences that these technical audiences really, really deeply care about. And so Bucket is just so well positioned for those, especially developer first tools to provide that level of insights to know, is this something that's turning them away or is this something that's turning them on and making them want to continue to utilize your product?
Yeah, and the bar just it gets higher and higher. Like,
Yeah.
I would argue when I did my first company, we could get something in production within 18 months that was competitive in certain areas at least.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now there's all these great tools out there, and if you have to go above and beyond, you have to care about this stuff, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
be in it every day, every week, right? Because others are, and the
Yes.
products out there are already pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a competitive edge for sure to have these insights and be able to iterate really quickly based on what your customers need, which is so important.
Mm, mm.
I love it. All right. Well, I have we'll wrap up. This has been super great. I apologize for the interruption. What are some of your favorite tools? You mentioned Linear. Obviously, Slack has made the cut due to their investments, right? Are there any other tools or products that you just really love? Obviously, you're someone who cares about the experience and the overall, beautiful products are something that's a passion for you.
Mm.
So, what other products do you love?
Yeah, good question. I think the product that I fell in love with the last was granola. I think
Oh,
this.
yes. Yep. What do
It
you
just
love about granola?
transcribes.
Because I use
Yeah,
Circleback.
yeah, and maybe that's as good. I just haven't tried it.
Mhm.
I tried some of these tools, like these note-taking tools that you would
Mhm.
invite into your Zoom call or whatever in the early days, and they just never really gave very good summaries, or they just dumped
Mhm.
you a whole transcript with a bunch of errors in it.
Yep.
But granola just went the extra mile and sort of took the transcript, which was good. I don't know how they made it so good, but it was very good. But maybe that's just AI getting better and whatnot, right? So maybe not on granola. I don't know. But what they did well was then summarize all of the things
Mhm.
that was said in the call. So you just get this bullet list, and the bullets are just spot on. I don't know how they do it, but they really save you a bunch of time. Like I often just share granola links now when
Yep.
I've had a. I don't even want to write up what the meeting was about and what the action points were. Just share the granola link, so it's saving me a ton of time. Um,
Mm.
so it's one of the things that is counterintuitive. I think like
Yeah.
they they did one thing incredibly well, and therefore they just get so much love. Whereas sometimes when you're a VC backed company, because you need to do the pitch and how you're going to conquer the whole world, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do AI transcriptions. I'm going to summarize them, but I should really also own the calendar. So I own the user and I can do the invite flow. And I should really also make a wiki and I should really own the entire thing, right? And then you
Before
end
you
up
know it, you're
building all
Google.
these features to fulfill your pitch deck vision, right?
Yep.
And none of the things end up being very good then, because you
Yep.
have to build all these things. And they took the other route, so they just started doing one thing, did it really, really well, and now I'm worried about them because now they say they're going to be building the AI workspace of the future or something, which sounds like a ton of things, right? But maybe they'll nail it. But there's something really nice about these small tools that just does one thing really well.
Yes, I agree. So Circle Back is very similar, and I've gone through tons of these note-taking apps, honestly, like Fireflies. I tried another one, I can't remember what the other one was. Otter, I think. There's a variety of them, but I agree. I also see the same experience with Granola. Circleback's also really good. So if folks are thinking about any of these tools, Granola, Circleback, check them both out. What I think is really great is when you get that, and Circleback also collects the video, so I can go back to that video. So even if I don't have recording on for my Google Meet, it'll still record that video and then it'll bring that in there. But what I think is super powerful is having that kind of a tool and then leveraging those transcripts. Like I didn't realize how amazing it was to just sit in a meeting and truly pay full attention and not have to take notes, not have to think about what's running around in my head because I know that summary is going to be good. And then I can take that transcript and use that. And so oftentimes I'll take a few different transcripts from different meetings. Like I'm actually kind of starting I'm starting a product with someone very candidly. They just reached out as a co-founder and I'm like, hey, let's just see what happens. So it's
Oh,
very
awesome.
serendipitous. Yeah, it's cool. So I took the transcripts just last week of the 4 meetings that we have and just brought it in and started utilizing AI to help me pull out the things that mattered. What should we do next? What's our strategic plan thus far? And it is just so beautiful to have those results and then be able to use all of that in other AI tools and in other operational sides of things. So I agree
Yeah.
with you on the note takers being beautiful tools.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think boring, standard answers like Cursor and Figma
Yeah,
and these tools, but they have really changed how we work. So I mean, I have to mention them.
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
I agree. I love that. All right. Well, this has been lovely. Sorry we had a little bit of an interruption. Where can folks find you on the internet? Obviously, they can go to bucket.co to check out Bucket, which I strongly recommend. Beautiful developer looking website that I absolutely love. But where else can they find you on the internet?
I'm so appreciate. I so much appreciate that you like the website. We tried to be inspired by Markdown because we were like,
Mm-hmm.
what do we really like reading the most? Like Markdown files because they're so easy to scan because they have these restrictions, right? So we tried to
Yep.
add the same restrictions to the website, and yeah, I think it turned out great. But it was very hard to not make crazy animations or background stuff because that's what everybody else is doing. But we were like, no, we're going to be true to this and just go with like hardcore restrictions. But yeah, I like it
Yep.
too. I have my Twitter handle is Makwarth, which is my last name. Sounds like a World of Warcraft handle, but it's actually my last name. So
That's cool.
it's Makwarth.
Perfect.
Yeah, Twitter is where it's at, or X, I should say.
Yeah, I think it'll always be Twitter until like that
I
redirect
know.
stops working. I don't know if I'll ever even change honestly. My son's name is Xavier and I call him X as like his nickname. I'm like, he came first. So sorry, it's going to be Twitter.
Yeah, yeah, it's Twitter for me as well.
I love that. All right, awesome. Well, yes, y'all nailed the website, especially with targeting more of those technical audiences who are really going to be intrigued by Bucket. So yeah, Lots of praise for that. I hope that everyone has a fabulous rest of their day, that they don't lose power like I have here in Texas. And Rasmus, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day as well. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me on.
Of course.